Hey guys, it's Shadow Ice 916 here. I'm going to be reading part 5 now, and I'm gonna start off with chapter 18. And yeah. Okay, here we go. Jeff and I kept towards the door that seemed to have bustle from behind. Jeff, you better not be hurting her, Slendy screamed. Jeff, I swear, Masky yelled afterwards. Jeff nodded to me, and I began screaming, as if I were in pain. Everything went silent, and then the door started being repeatedly banged on. Jeff, I'm going to kick your ass, Jeff threatened. The banging continued, and Smiles' bark came over the banging. You could tell he was ticked off, and I looked to Jeff. We backed away from the door and towards his window. He unlatched it and opened it. Stick with me at all times. I don't want you getting hurt even more, he whispered. What's up with the windows today? I whispered, chuckles. He chuckled too, and we crawled out of the window. Jeff helped me out. We began to run through the rose garden, and I stopped to look at the black and red roses. They're pretty, aren't they? He said, looking at one. I've always loved roses, I agreed. He took out his knife and cut off a rose. He picked off the thorns and handed them to me. I took it with a smile and looked up to him, and he was smiling back. You're softer than others think, I said. He straightened up and looked me over. If you tell anyone, I will kill you. Got it? He said seriously. I nodded fast, and he took my free hand and started to take me through the forest. The sound of the forest animals in the distance bounced of the weeping trees. But to me it was still beautiful. We came to a clearing and sat down, trying to catch our breath. We looked at each other and busted up laughing. I wonder if they'll realize it was a joke, he said. Who knows? From the way that you were acting, they should realize it was a prank, I laughed. We lay down next to each other and stared at the dark, yet daytime sky. It was so different from my world, yet I loved it. So what made you change your attitude towards me? I asked curiously. Well, because he trailed. Jeff's point of view. I couldn't tell her it was because I was cracking. My insanity was at stake for crying out loud. I didn't want her to know that I was starting to give in to her. She already believed I was a soft person, and I sure as hell wasn't. If it weren't for her smashing my walls, then I would have slit her throat right then. And the damn voice won't stop either. I don't know what will take to stop it either. She stayed silent, and we continued to look up at the sky. All of a sudden, the rustle of bushes came, and we both jolted up. We looked around us worriedly and on high alert. I knew it was a bad idea to bring her out here. And the rustle came again, and we looked to our right. A twig snapped, and she inched away from the spot. Slowly a dark-colored figure came out of the shadows, and I grabbed my knife, ready to kill. But I was proven wrong, for a deathly-looking doe stepped out of the woods. Her eyes were dark-rimmed, and she had patches for skin on her body. Her bones could be seen through some of the skin, yet the thing was kinda cute. She walked up to Ariel and looked at her for a second. Ariel smiled sweetly and reached down to touch it. I expected to see the doe run away in fear, but it just stayed there and allowed Ariel to pet its head. I stared in amazement as the doe seemed to enjoy the attention it was getting from her. And to top it off, I felt a flutter in my stomach. I clenched my stomach and backed away a bit. It was things like this that made my walls crumble for her. I just melted when I saw something that was so different from what I normally did. She was so magnificent to me. I knew she wasn't a dream, I heard a female voice growl. Ariel and I both turned around, and the doe ran off in fear. I knew who it was, and so did Ariel. Chapter 19, My Rose. She stepped out, a smirk on her face. You guys were pretty smart to make it seem like a dream. Can't believe I almost fell for it. I mean, after all, I did have unexplained bruises, she said. I stood in front of Ariel as Jane began circling around us. You're tough, I'll give you that. Throwing me out the window like that? She continued. What the hell do you want, Jane? I said through gritted teeth. Isn't it obvious? Her, she said with an evil grin. Why is she so special? I asked. You should know that one, Jeff. I've been watching you two. In fact, the whole group. They've all grown to love the little innocent bitch, haven't they? She said, stroking her knife. I turned to Ariel instantly, and she looked from Jane to me. Run to the house. Don't stop, I whispered. She began to protest, but I stopped her. Go, I demanded. She nodded reluctantly and ran into the woods, Jane trying to follow. I tackled her against a tree, my knife to her throat, and she just began to laugh. Oh, Jeff, look how weak you've become. Succumbing to a teenage girl, now that I thought you were above. She joked. I haven't grown weak, I spat. She shook her head slightly, and blood started trickling down her neck. Oh, really? Then why are you protecting her? Why don't you just kill her? It's not the first time you've killed a poor, defenseless girl, she said. I dug the knife into her skin, and she laughed even more. You crave her, Jeff. You crave her presence. You crave the unknown lust she brings you. You crave her smile and touch. Don't you, Jeff? She questioned, messing with my mind. No, I haven't. I tried to fight back. Don't lie to yourself. You're falling for her, and only in a day or two. It's funny how the heart works, especially yours. You don't know what to do, leaving you vulnerable. The perfect time to strike, she said, hitting me in the stomach. I fell to my knees, and I looked up at her smirking face. Told you, she snickered. I sneered and tackled her legs, knocking her back into the tree. If Ariel can kick your ass, I sure as hell can, I hissed. I grabbed her arm and flung her to the ground. I held my knife in my right hand. She started to get up, and I kicked her back down. Maybe you're right, Jane, but you know what? I said, grabbing her hair and making her look up to me. She had pain written in her face, and she was biting her lip as to not scream. You won't lay a damn finger on my innocent Rose, I growled. Ariel's point of view. I ran as fast as I could through the dark forest, knocking branches out of my way. I was hoping that Jeff was okay, and that he was winning. I hated having to flee like that. I came up to the house and bust through the door to see a frantic group of creepypastas. They looked at me with relief and ran to me to give me a hug. We thought Jeff hurt you, Jack said. You should have known he wasn't going to hurt me, but there is one person that is, I said. They all looked at me curiously, or from what I could tell. Jane knows, I said worriedly. Chapter 20. Now I realize. They all looked at me and began to freak out. How are we going to keep her safe now? Masky asked. We just have to constantly keep her away from her until we bring her back to her world, Sunday replied. I don't want you guys fighting all the time, I said. Child, you are okay. We are willing to keep you safe. We just have to do it until your world has calmed down, Sunday assured. Guys, I don't think that's gonna happen anytime soon, Ben said, looking at his computer. We looked at each other, then to Ben, instantly crowding around him. Ben started playing a video that showed that what happened when they attempted to bring me back to my world. The whole world knows now, Ben said. I backed away and sat down on a half-broken chair, just looked down. I'm sorry, I brought you all so much trouble. I apologized sadly. Jack came over and placed a hand on my shoulder. Do not think for 1 second that you're a hassle. If anything, we've had the most excitement since you've gotten here, he said happily. Yeah, and we're probably never gonna stop being believed in, guaranteed, Masty laughed. I looked up and smiled at the people that were treating me so kindly. Thank you so much, I said, getting up and hugging them. They laughed and hugged back, and when I pulled away, I heard the door open and slam shut. We all turned to face a bloody Jeff, who seemed to be very angry. The bitch thinks she can take me. I swear if she lays a finger on her, I will make her worst nightmare. I'll slit her wrists and slam her head into a moving train, Jeff growled to himself. He walked past us and down the hall, still mumbling to himself. I quickly followed, and when he was about to shut the door, I stopped it with my hand. I followed Jeff into his white and black room that consisted of a bookshelf and knife sharpeners. I saw him sit on his black, white, and blood-stained bed, and holding his hands together. What do? I've never been in this situation before. I can't take this insanity anymore. I can't take it, he mumbled to himself as he began rocking back and forth. Jeff, are you okay? I asked nervously. He looked up at me, and he had a crazy look on his face. I realize now, he said, calming down. Jeff's point of view. Ariel, I can't tell you yet, but I realize now that I love you. Chapter 21, The Note. The rest of the day, I helped everyone fix up the house to its previous luxurious state. It was fun because we decided to play some upbeat music and dance to it. It's always a good time, I sang. Whoa, ho, ho, ho. It's always a good time, Ben, Jack, Hoodie, and Masky sang. I began to laugh immensely at their attitude, and they laughed with me. What, you don't like our quartet? Jack laughed. You guys sound amazing, I joked. Oh, 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 they sang. It started off with Ben, then Hoodie, Masky, and ended with Jack. I giggled to myself as they attempted to sing a quartet version of Good Time. Doesn't matter when, it's always a good time then, they sang. At that point, I couldn't breathe. Hen was on the ground, holding onto the new couch, laughing. Jeff just eyed us as if we were stupid, but I did see a small smile on his face. Guys, I think we should stop before she dies of laughter, Jack joked. Nah, I'm good, I laughed. I got up and placed a vase of black roses on one of the tables, finishing off the cleaning for the day. I'm going to go to bed, guys. I'm exhausted, I said, walking towards the stairs. Sure you don't want some food? You haven't eaten all day, Sandy asked. I'm fine. I'm too tired to eat. Good night, guys, I said, walking up the stairs. Good night, they said after me. I walked down the now fixed hallway and into my room that managed to make it out without any type of mark on it. I went into the bathroom and took a good warm shower that relaxed my aching muscles. A few things here and there from the water cleaning the wounds, but nevertheless it felt good. I turned the water off and stepped out, slipping on a silky white nightgown that fit me somewhat perfectly since it fell off my shoulders a bit. I brushed my teeth, washed my face, and slipped into bed, slowly drifting into a much-needed sleep. When I woke up, I looked at the clock and saw that it was 10 in the morning. The smell of breakfast food came to my nose. I inhaled happily and got out of bed to go downstairs when something on my nightstand caught my eyes. It was a plain white note. I looked at it for a second before picking it up and reading it. Dear Ariel, I need to tell you something that can no longer be hidden. Please meet me in the Rose Garden tonight at 9. Sincerely yours. I read the note over again and set it down. Who wrote this? Could it be a trap by Jane? That I didn't know, but I was wanting to find out. I walked into the bathroom to fix my hair before going downstairs. I really didn't want to look like a mess. When I walked down, I noticed that everyone was in the kitchen, sitting on the table. When I walked in, everyone turned to look at me, and with a smile. Good morning, sleepyhead, Jack laughed. Good morning, everyone, I said happily as I sat down. Suddenly sat down a plate of eggs, hash brown, and bacon. It smelled really good, and I was extremely hungry since it had been a day since I'd eaten. Thank you, I said before I ate. So how do you like your nightgown I got you? Miss P asked. I looked up at her and smiled. It's beautiful. I love it, I said happily. She smiled as I replied and continued to eat. I was about to continue eating when I realized I had something I needed to say. I set down my fork and placed my hands on my lap, and everyone seemed to notice. What is it? Jeff asked. Who wrote me a note? I asked, looking at everyone. They all stopped eating and looked at me. What note? Chapter 22. What a surprise. A note I found on my nightstand this morning. It told me to meet in the Rose Garden tonight at 9, I explained. They all looked to each other and then to me. Ben hopped out of his chair and held up his finger. It is time for Detective Ben to go on an investigation, he said aloud. Shut up, Hoodie said, tugging Ben back down. Well, are you going to meet them? Jeff asked. Yes, I wanted to know who it is, I said, starting to eat my food again. He looked me up and down, then continued eating. You might need to watch out tonight. We'll send Smile with you in case it's Jane, Cindy said, getting up and taking my empty plate. Alrighty, I said, getting up. Ben, take Ariel out to get a dress, and make sure you watch her. We don't need any more problems. Ariel, make sure to grab a hoodie or something that will cover your face, Cindy said, pointing to Ben. Cindy said, pointing to Ben and I. Okay, I said, heading back upstairs to get ready. Cindy's point of view. Ariel walked upstairs to get ready, and I looked to Jack, Masky, and Hoodie, who were whispering to themselves. And what are you three doing? I asked. They jolted and looked at me. We're going to go on a hunt to try and figure out who wrote the note, Jack replied. Will you leave the privacy of that alone? It is none of your business, I said, looking at all of them. Got something to hide, Cindy? Masky asked. If I could have eyes and eyebrows, I would be glaring at them. No, I replied. Uh-huh. Hey, Jeff, you want to figure out who wrote that note? They said, turning to an annoyed Jeff. I've got better things to do, like kill, he replied. Maybe it's him, Hoodie said. Ha, Jeff liking Ariel? Not a chance. If anything, he wants her gone, Jack laughed. Jeff shot them a look and stood up straight, getting in their face. Not once did I say I want her gone, he hissed. They stayed silent and then looked at each other, then to me. Well, if you need us, we'll be on an investigation, Masky said before they ran out of the kitchen. I turned to look at Jeff, and he had his arms crossed. What are you looking at? He snapped. I eyed him. You seem stressed. You sure there isn't anything you're hiding? I questioned. He got up right in front of me and looked up at me, anger in his eyes. Not a thing. If anything, I'm sure one of these three musketeers over there is the note writer, he said before walking out. I followed him and I saw Jack, Muskie, and Hoodie huddled in a corner looking around the room. Ben was sitting in the couch waiting for Ariel, who started walking down the stairs in a white hoodie. Why do I have to get Ariel a dress anyway? Ben asked, getting up. Because you know good places. You are on the internet all the time, I replied. Come on, Ben, it'll be fun. You know, you can own a shop or something. Like Benmart. Ariel laughed. Sounds like some sort of Indian shop, he joked. Hello and welcome to Benmart, she said in a funny accent while she and Ben walked out the door. Ben followed, laughing. Ariel's point of view. The whole day, Ben and I were out shopping though it seemed that it was hard to find something. Even though he was on the internet, I didn't expect him to be looking up women's clothing any time in his life. We had sneaked into every clothing shop storage house there was until Ben finally picked out something. How about this? He asked, holding up a white dress. I love it, I squealed before grabbing it. Go try it on, and if it fits well, we'll take it. You need to get back anyway. You need to get ready, he said. What about shoes and accessories? I asked. He groaned and looked up. Women, he joked. I punched him on the arm and went to go try on the dress. When we had gotten home, I had found my outfit and I was supposed to meet the person in 2 hours. I instantly rushed up the stairs and got into my room to get ready. I slipped on the clean white dress and light pink ballet flats that I thought would go well with the outfit. I put lip gloss on and put my hair into a fishtail braid that was tied with a white flower pin. I looked myself over and smiled. Ready to go, I began to go out my door. I stopped at the end of the hallway so that no one could see me. Everyone needs to go into their rooms. I want the person to be surprised, I yelled downstairs. I heard Jack, Hoodie, and Muskie groan as I heard them get up and begin to make their way to their rooms. I ran back into my room and waited until I heard Jack go into his room and shut the door. When the coast was clear, I bolted downstairs and saw Miss P and Sally sitting on the couch. They both looked at me wide-eyed and smiled. You look lovely, dear. Whoever you're meeting is really lucky, Miss P said. You think? I said, looking at my attire. Definitely. You look like a princess, Definitely. You look like a princess, Sally said happily while walking up to me and hugging me. I hugged her back and looked to smile. You ready? I asked him. He wagged his tail as a reply and ran over to me as I opened the door. Good luck, Miss P said after me. Thanks, I said before shutting the door. I walked into the warm yet cool air and made my way towards the rose garden. I was really wondering who it could be. Ben? Jack, possibly? I didn't have a clue. I wanted to know so much that it hurt. I picked up my pace and started running towards the rose garden when it came into view. Smile barked happily and started running off and took a left turn, leaving me confused. I followed after him and when I took the left turn, I bumped into somebody and they caught me so I wouldn't stumble back. You look beautiful, I heard a very familiar and cool voice say. I suddenly looked up to see a Jeff in a fancy black tux. He looked at me and I couldn't help but blush. It was you? I asked, a smile crawling across my face. Chapter 23, Midnight Ball. Surprised? He asked, looking down at me. Yes, I thought you didn't like me, I replied. At first I didn't, but then you got into my head, he said, grabbing my hand and taking me through the garden. I had to admit, he looked good in a tux, and what surprised me more is that he was actually wearing a tux. And why did he write the note? What did he have to tell me? I couldn't seem to find out inside my head and a reasonable answer. There was one, but it was way out there. But could it? Smile walked up to me from behind and nudged Jeff's leg. You can go back. It's okay. I'll take care of her, Jeff said to Smile. Smile nodded and began to run back to the house. When I looked back at Jeff, he was taking me out to the rose garden and bringing me into the woods. Where are you taking me? I asked. It's a surprise, he replied while he was pushing aside branches. The moon was nice and full tonight, and it was gorgeous. The leaves swayed with each punch. The wind gave. It was completely still and silent except for the sound of the grass crunching beneath our feet. Jeff suddenly stopped and turned to me. Close your eyes, he said, walking up to me. I gave him a questioning look before I obeyed, and I felt his hand gently glide back into mine. It made the butterflies crazy in my stomach, but I kept it down, and the best I could. He started leading me further into the woods, until he stopped again. Now open, he said softly. I slowly opened my eyes to see a lake glistening. With the moon's light. A large oak tree on the side that made a shadow onto the lake's watery bed, and next to it was a table and 2 chairs, and a radio on top. It was beautiful, and I couldn't believe he'd done this. You did this for me, all by yourself? I asked, staring into his dark eyes. He nodded with a smile that grew hopeful. Do you like it? He asked. I love it. Thank you so much, I said, hugging him. Jeff's point of view. When she hugged me, it was like my stomach and mine had gone crazy. And when I hugged her back, it made it worse. But the thing was, I liked it. We pulled away and I grabbed her hand, a grin crawling on my face. There's more, I said, bringing her to the moonlit scene. I walked her over to the table and leaned over to start the radio. A beautiful piano piece came on that I thought would fit the occasion. I think it was from that one movie about vampires, but I don't know much about the movie since I didn't really like it. I pulled her gently over to below the tree, and I looked at her. May I have this dance? I asked nervously. She nodded and I brought her closer to me, our bodies touching. I wrapped my arms around her waist and she put hers around my neck. She laid her head on my chest and we began to sway with the music that crackled with the old radio. I hope it doesn't do that all night. So, how come I got in your head? She asked. You didn't. That's why I didn't like you that much from the beginning. It's because you slowly started snacking into my head. I don't know how or why, but you just do. I would ask myself too, what does she do to me? How does she do it? I never got the answer until yesterday. I realized that I was attracted to you because you seem to be everything I'm not. Your smile, laugh, and all about you made me nuts, and I was already insane, so I couldn't grasp it. You're so caring to me. When I treated you terribly from the start, I'm lured to you because of your innocence and who you are, I said, letting out everything that was bottled up. At the last part, I pulled away and put a hand on her cheek. She smiled and closed her eyes, leaning more into my hand. I was surprised I was not shaking like crazy because, honestly, I was a wreck inside. And she made it worse. My heart was beating faster than after I killed someone. What the hell does that say? I stared at her face while her eyes were closed, and I decided I should do it. If she's stuck around this far, she must like me, right? I leaned in, and it seemed to me that my heartbeat went faster. I placed my lips on hers, and her eyes shot open, only to slowly close again as she kissed back. A tingling sensation went up my body, and the butterflies started exploding in my stomach. At this moment, I kind of wished I would close my eyes. The voice in my head finally stopped and left. But before it did, it said these words that I won't need a reminder for. Love and protect her. Chapter 24, Go to Sleep Beside You. I looked at her when we pulled away, and she was smiling. I smiled too, and I brought her to me for another kiss. I could feel her smile through it. My hand was on the back of her head, and the other was on her back. Both her hands were around my neck. I had never kissed a girl before. It felt so good. We pulled away once more, and the moon glinted in her eyes. You have extremely soft cheeks, you know that, I blurted out. I kind of wanted to facepalm myself for that since I thought she would think I was weird for saying that. She giggled and put both hands on her cheeks. I know, thank you, she said cutely. I looked at her confused for a second. What, that doesn't weird you out? I asked. She shook her head. Nope, I like when people feel my cheeks, she giggled. You have people feel your cheeks? I chuckled. Yes, she replied. Well, I'm the only one that gets to feel them now, I blurted out again. What had come over me I didn't know, and I really wanted to smack myself across the face for it. I didn't want her to laugh in my face and walked away from me, but she smiled and grabbed my hand. Okay, she said happily. I grinned and walked a bit past her, only to fall back into dark grass. I reached out a hand to her, and she gladly took it, taking a place next to me on the ground. She put a hand on my chest, and I wrapped mine around her. We began to look up at the stars, and stayed silent for a bit before we started talking about random things. I never thought this would happen in a million years, I confessed. How come? She questioned. Well, I'm a killer. That's how I basically came out as, and in fact, that I'm insane doesn't help it. You realize how many times I wanted to kill you before I fell for you, I told her. You're not acting insane right now, though, she stated. That's because it's you. If it were anyone else, I would be happy to jump at their throats and cut them open. You're the only one I'm soft for, I explained. Aw, that's sweet, she laughed. Hey, watch it, I said, nudging her. She laughed and nudged me back. Sunny's point of view. I'd better be wrong. There is no possible way it could be the person I'm thinking it is. Reread that. Okay. I better be wrong. There is no possible way it could be the person I'm thinking it is, Ben said as we made our way through the forest. Well, he's the only one not here, unless he is out killing. He said he was going to do that earlier, I replied. You guys owe me money if it is, Hoodie said to Masky and Jack. We got to a lake and looked around to try and find Ariel and the mystery note writer. There on the other side of the lake, under a tree, was Ariel and Jeff kissing. I freaking told you, Hoodie said loudly. "Keep your mouth shut. They could hear us," I hushed. "I can't believe that Jeff, of all people, was the note writer," Jack said, rubbing the back of his head. I could tell simply by his sudden change in attitude towards her that he didn't hate her. In fact, I believe that he hidden feelings for her, even hidden to him, I said. "I guess it's not that much of a shock," Masky agreed. We watched them fall on the grass next to each other, the echo of their laughter across the lake. "We should go mess with them," Ben said, making his way to the other side of the lake. I instantly grabbed him and brought him back to the rest of the group. Don't you think about it," I hissed. He just glared at me and looked away. "Fine," he pouted. I set him down and looked over to see them still laying in the same place. I could faintly hear their conversation, though. "Let's go," I said, walking back into the forest to the house. The rest groaned and followed me reluctantly. Ariel's point of view. "You hungry?" Jeff asked, looking at me. "Not really. I like laying here better anyway," I replied, looking back at him. If he could blush, I'm sure he would right now by looking on his face. I snuggled up more next to him, and his grip got a bit tighter. "Why do you like me?" he asked. "What's not to like? Behind that insanity is a heart. I see it. To me you're kind, truthful, defensive, sweet, and loving. And I don't care what anyone else has to say. I think you're quite attractive," I replied. Why wouldn't anyone like my beautiful face?" He laughed. "They're just jealous," I joked. He chuckled and started stroking my hair. We stayed like that, staring at the stars from the rest of the night, until eventually I drifted off into this blissful sleep. And the one thing that helped me sleep the most was the sweet words he whispered in my ear that would freak out anyone else. "Go to sleep." Snap. My eyes shot open and I looked around. Snap. My heart started beating faster as I just laid there, trying to figure out what was making the noise. Snap. It was getting closer, whatever it was, and I didn't like the vibe I was getting. I started shaking on Jeff, who was asleep, with his eyes open. I wonder how he does that. "Jeff, wake up, I hear something," I said, shaking him more. He grunted and he bolted upright. He looked around then to me and gave me a questioning look. Snap. We both jolted up and looked around our surroundings. All of a sudden we heard a chuckle through the woods. Jeff grabbed my hand and squeezed it, taking out his knife from inside his tux pocket. The chuckle came again, and I heard Jeff growl. "That stupid bitch," he said through gritted teeth. Well, guys, that's the end of this part 5, and I made this a lot longer, and I'm going to start making them a little longer until the end, depending on which way I'm going to do it. And so, yeah, if you like it so far, I leave a good like, and yeah, I will see you in part 6.